Okay. So we set this thing up, and setting this up, I talk about in other videos from last week. So you can watch those to set them up. And some of this will still be review. We want this stuff to match up. It's kind of like anything goes, but it needs to look good. And I'm going to show you a lot of different ways. Some of it will be review, but we gotta get this. You can kind of see in the center if I zoom in. You can see that it doesn't really match up that well. Like this is darker than this. This doesn't match with this. Oh, and then this doesn't match with that. I want to try to match that stuff as best I can. So let's review, and then I'll show you some new stuff. First, what am I going to do? Well, the easiest tool to use is this guy. It's the spot healing brush. It's like a little Band-Aid with a little spot. And usually what you do is you drag over your image, and it fills in the surrounding areas. Let's see, that worked pretty good. It's kind of soft though. So I'm gonna drag here. I'm gonna drag here. Not bad here. This is such a low pixel image that it kind of works. It's not perfect. Okay, now let's see if I can. Okay, I want this. Let's see. Yep, that looks pretty good. That's looking better. I'm kind of. Oh, I screwed up. Okay, I'm gonna undo. Control Z to undo. Let me try again. Okay, I'm screwing up because I'm really close to that white, so I want to avoid it. Dude. Okay, I could always zoom in closer to be more careful. I think I need to do that. So now this doesn't jive, right? There's kind of like this big mark here. Now, let me see if this spot healing brush will work. I'll show you a couple different ways on how to fix this. Like this should be one mark, right? And I showed you this before. Let's see if I can just get this to work. Can I just drag that out? That kind of worked, but it's softer. It's like a softer color. Okay. Another thing I showed you was just to copy it. Let's see. I can use my lasso, so I'm using my lasso. I'm selecting some of this brown. Okay. I selected some of the brown. Then I'm going to use I'm going to just copy this brown and just move it right here on top. So how do I copy it? I use the move tool. So first I use my lasso to make a selection. Then I go to my move tool. But if I just move this thing, if I move it, it'll cut it away. Oh, it cut it away, trust me. Well, let me hide. The reason why it didn't look like it cut away because I had that other layer. Now, if I don't hold the Alt key, watch, it cuts it away. You don't want that. So whenever you want to copy or make a copy of part of your pattern, you hold the Alt key with your move tool. So I have my move tool, I'm going to hold the Alt key, then I can drag it. And that looks pretty good. That's going to like line up along that edge. Let's see. That looks pretty good. Then I'm going to press Control D to deselect. Not bad, not bad. Okay, let's look over here. Shoot. So again, I want this to kind of like it kind of softens a little here. So let's see what I can do here. I'm gonna make a selection. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so I use my lasso to make the selection. If you want to reposition your selection, you actually use the lasso itself to move it around. It doesn't copy or anything, but you can use this to move your selection around. Like you can kind of maybe find a sweet spot. But to make the copy, you have to use your move tool. So I'm going to go move tool, and don't forget, you have to hold the Alt key. The Alt key to make a copy. So I'm going to make a copy of that. I'm going to put it right. That looks pretty good. So that's before, yeah, not bad. So and then I Control D to deselect. So that looks pretty good. That's good. Now let me look at this thing. This thing is funky. So now the problem is, you're probably thinking, Dave, that wasn't a good choice. You probably, when you're copying this thing, do I still have this? I probably should have found something that lined up better. I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard one. I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, that's why I'm going to give you permission to fudge this. I'm going to fudge this thing right now. So let's see. Now I have a choice. I can make this white brown, or I'm sorry, this like red. That's probably the best choice. At first I was thinking I'm going to keep this part white and this part red. Nah, forget that. I'm going to copy this and just put it right here. Let's see. It's not going to fit. Let's try it. See how well it works. Move tool. Close. So I copied it. Control D, deselect. All right, let's try this one. I still have to fix it though. Okay. Move tool with the Alt key to copy. Ooh, that one didn't work very well. Let's see here. It's okay. Okay, Control D, deselect. So I still need to fix this stuff. So let's see what, so again, copy, right? So we've been doing this. Let's see, I'm gonna go lasso, boy, I'm just gonna do this kind of fast. Move tool, Alt key, not bad. Okay, looks good. Then I'm gonna deselect, Control D. I wanna copy a portion here. Shoot. I'm gonna copy, this is a little bigger area, so I'm gonna copy this. Move tool, Alt key, copy. Let's see, I'm gonna copy it a little bit here. I'm gonna drag a little bit here. Okay, looks pretty darn good. The problem is though, you can see there's like this dark line here. I don't want that, I want it to be kind of solid like this. Okay, but that's not too tough to fix. I'm gonna go make a selection here, move tool, copy, I'm just gonna drag it right over. It looks pretty darn good. Okay, that's pretty good, Control D. Now, normally I would go in and try to, this looks pretty good. There's a little flaw here, maybe I'd add a little bit of orange there. I don't want to take forever, but that's what you would do. Now, there's one more thing. Oh, look at this, you can see this line here. Spot healing brush, let's try that. I'm gonna click a spot here. If you wanna draw a straight line with your spot healing brush, you can hold Shift. So I'm gonna do that, it kind of worked. Okay, I'm gonna go here. Nope, I'm just gonna avoid that. Okay. So this looks pretty good. It still looks kind of it's like a crummy pattern. It's a crummy pattern because it's low resolution, but it's like, it's more seamless than it was. So it's kind of like I'm working with what was given to me. The problem though, is I still got this area is kind of lighter and this is darker. And I'm not sure if you guys can see that on your screen, but this needs to be a little darker like this. So what can I do? There's a couple different things you can do to make it darker. And this is kind of tricky territory as well. One way is this tool right here. It's the burn tool. The problem with the burn tool though, is it doesn't just make it darker, it makes it a little more saturated. So you don't want to use this too much. But when you use this tool, it's going to be a brush. Let me decrease the size so you can see it. Okay. Normally use this for photographs, right? So if you want something to be darker, you just, so let's try it. So I'm gonna go a little darker. What's it set to? Set to midtones. Did that work? Yeah, that worked a little. Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. So I'm just gonna darken it a little. All right. This one's really, okay. But you don't want to do too much. Normally the exposure level is 50%. I've got like 20%. So you might want to start lower, like 20%. You don't want to get too dark. Gosh, look at that thing. That thing's terrible. That looks, you want to match. That matches. That's pretty good. Okay. If you needed to, I don't need to lighten something, but if I needed to lighten something, you'd use the dodge tool. The dodge tool is grouped with the burn tool. Use this for photographs to brighten stuff. I don't need it, but I'll just show you how it works. Like if I needed this area to be brighter, you can see it's getting brighter, but I'm gonna undo that because I don't want that right now. What I want to fix though is this. I've got this weird, you can kind of see this line here. Now I'm kind of splitting hairs. Some of you are gonna be like, this looks fine, this is great. And it might, it's gonna be such a tiny pattern that you may not notice the stuff anyways. But I just wanna give you the knowledge to make this thing as close or as perfect as possible. So I want to kind of blend this texture. And the tool I used it last week, is the patch. The patch usually, so what I'm gonna do is I wanna patch this area with texture. Now I gotta find texture though. So I'm just gonna move it right over here and let's see if it'll blend it in. Maybe. Let's try this. This is kind of smooth. It did it a little bit. I want this pattern. Kind of blends it a little. Okay, I want this. And so what this does is it takes this pixelated texture and it puts it on top. it kind of helps blend it a little bit. This may be overkill. Actually, that looks better. But give it a try when you're working on this stuff. It will help mask that seam with the pixelated texture. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, let's see. Oh, I got a little up here. Let me do it real quick. Oh, shoot. Let's make this thing perfect. Or let's make it close. First, I'm going to start with that spot healing brush. I just want to get this a little bit better. Undo. Okay. I'm gonna use the paintbrush, and I'm gonna use the paintbrush eyedropper to select this brown. The problem is there's lots of different browns in there, but I'm gonna select a brown. You don't just want to paint everything a solid color. You actually want to see this crummy texture if you can. It'll make it look more original or natural, even though the pixel pattern is not that great. But I selected it. I selected the brown. Now I'm going to go paintbrush, and when I paint, I'm going to make my brush small by using my left and right brackets. I'm just going to paint this brown in here. To be honest, that looks pretty good. I don't think because it was such a small area, I may not need to apply that pattern, that texture. But let's imagine I'm a student. Don't do this. And let's say I overdid it. Let's say I painted a lot of this solid color, and this may not even be that big of a deal. It may be hard to see on your screen, but it just looks like, darn it, what the heck? Here it is. So you can see it's kind of a blob, right? And it's a solid blob. I want to look more pixelated like this. This is where you use that patch tool. So watch, I'm gonna go patch. What I do is I select around the area I want to apply the pattern to. So I select around it. There's my solid, neat blob. I drag a selection around it with my patch tool. Then I move, and I click and hold my mouse, and I move this around, and I can move it wherever I want. Well, I want to sample this textury pattern right here. And then when I let go, it'll apply this to that. And I just do it. I just let go. And there it is. And now you can see it has that texture. Okay, that's kind of overkill, but let's try it. Let's see what this thing looks like. Okay, so now I'm ready. So after I offset it, I fixed these center seams. It looks like I could fix that a little bit. I'm gonna do it. Okay. Okay, here we go. So now, because I copy and pasted this, and it's separate, it's isolated from that original big pattern, and I fixed it. And normally you would save this. You would save this as, you would just save it to your file in case you had to change it or update it. But anyways, this is good to go. I think I'm ready to go. I can just define this as a pattern. Usually you have to select it, but let me try. I don't remember. I might just be able to define this as a pattern without selecting it. So let me try. But here's how you define it as a pattern. I want this to be saved as my patterns. I go edit, define pattern. Let's see if it worked. Yeah, it worked. If I had extra area around it, I would have to use a mark. Let me show you. But this is going to work. I'm going to hit OK. If I had extra image around it, then I would have to use this rectangular marquee to go on the edges. But because this is only by itself, it's isolated, it's ready to go, I can just define it without this box. Or I don't want to do this. But if I wanted to define a portion of this as a pattern, this is not going to line up. But let's say I just wanted that to be a pattern. You have to use this selection box. Anything in a selection will be defined as a pattern, but Control D to deselect. Because it's isolated, because I did the offset filter, it's one image, it's good to go. I can just define this as a pattern. I went edit, define pattern, I saved it. Now let's test it. Let's see if it looks good. When you test it, you just want to open up a new, usually I just open up a new page. So I go File, New, just an 8.5 by 11, letter size. I'm going to hit Create. So here it is, it's just a big page. Now, in this sample, this is a test page, I'm just going to have a fill layer with a pattern and just to look at it. Okay, so here I go. So I go my layers, layers, I go black and white circle. I'm going to go a fill layer, and it's going to be pattern. So I'm going to hit pattern. Here it is. Then I got to pick it. Well, here are all my patterns that I've already been fixing and messing with. This is the latest pattern. Usually it remembers it, so I'm going to hit OK. Now here's the test. Let's go look at it. Let's zoom in on it. Let's see how good I did or bad. Not bad. I did a pretty good job. So I did a pretty good job. It looks pretty good. But here's something that maybe you guys have noticed. Maybe you guys are picky. It's okay to be picky. But you might notice this is good for my class. So if you achieve this, excellent. But some of you are going to be super nitpickers, and you're going to want to suffer and punish yourself more and make it absolutely perfect. And I'm okay with that. Make it as perfect as you can. But like I'm saying, this is okay for my class. But some of you might notice, you might be like, hey, look, see how it's lighter? Here, I'll zoom in on it. It's lighter here, but then it's like there's like this dark band. And that repeats, Dave. I don't know about that. That doesn't look very good. You're right. If you worked for a perfectionist, or if you were a perfectionist, you would have to somehow fix that. And boy, is that difficult. That's more than what I'm looking for in our class. So even though it doesn't look too bad, I mean, this image it's kind of like it's taken from fabric anyways. It looks pretty good, and it's small. That's pretty good. So that looks great. Okay, we did it. Now for, and let's see, where's my sample? You can see, I put it in here. You'll notice that I changed it. You have to modify one of your patterns. So I'll show you how we can modify this stuff right now. But you need to modify one of these patterns, okay? What I could have done though, is I could have just copied one of these down here and modified it. I could have done that as well. But let me show you what you can do. Okay, so here's my pattern. Here's the pattern that I edited, and I defined it as a pattern. So it's like, it's good to go. But for this assignment, not only do I have to do this with a pattern, I need to change it. I got to recolor it, draw on it, paint on it, do whatever I want to do. Well, we can do this. So I'm just going to give you a million ideas, and you can just do whatever you like, okay? But we need to change this somehow and save it as a new pattern. So I already have this saved. I want to do a variation of it. So how do I do a variation of it? Well, there's all kinds of different things you can do. The easiest thing to do is change color. So let me experiment with changing color. One thing I can do is I can use an adjustment layer. So I'm going to go adjustment layer. I'm going to do color balance. We've talked about this, right? Adjustment layers, right? Maybe I want this to be bluish and maybe magenta. So it's kind of pink. Okay. That's step one. That's almost too easy though. I want you to paint on it a little bit too, but you could start there. I mean, that's pretty easy. I don't want to be green, but I could have pushed it to green or maybe more blue, but that looks pretty good. Okay, step one, change the color. Okay, that was easy. Now I can also paint stuff. I can paint, or I can just copy and paste. You'll notice that what I did was, let's talk about painting first. I can use my eyedropper. The eyedropper selects color. So it's like, I want to select this, let's see, I want to select this thing. Okay, this color. It's like I don't know, it's like a purpley color. And I want to paint it. Actually, I can't just select this color, because what it will do is I have this adjustment layer changing everything to be red. So if I click on this, it'll be more red than this kind of brown. That sounds complicated. So here's the trick. I'm going to hide my adjustment layer for now. I'm going to select this. Now it's an orange. I'm going to select this orange, paint the orange, and then put on the adjustment layer so it's going to be more red. Trust me. Now, what I can do is I can paint directly on top of this image, but if I screw up, it's permanent, right? So let me show you. I'll show you, and then I'll get more sophisticated, because some of you are like, Dave, I want the sophisticated stuff. I know you do. I'm glad. So what I can do is I got my paintbrush, and I could just paint directly on this image. So I'm going to do it. So I want to have a little diamond in here. So there's 1, 2, but let's say they don't match up or they don't look very good. You're like, Dave, you screwed up. It's going to be a pain to fix that. And you're right, it is. Now, this is a tiny pattern. This might be okay. This is a tiny pattern. It's only like 1 inch. It's tiny. So it's probably okay, but let me show you a safer way to work. So I'm going to undo this, Control Z, Control Z. I'm going to have a separate layer where I paint these little elements. In fact, I'm going to paint 1 element and just copy it. Watch. So here's my layers. I'm going to drag my layers out. I'm going to make a new layer. So new layer. And on this layer, I'm just going to paint that diamond. Or maybe a dot.
Dave,
Yeah.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
if you talked about this before, but if I'm trying to test and make sure my pattern looks good, how do I go about doing that again?
I'll show you again because I'll save this again and I'll show you. So
Okay,
just
thank you.
Yeah, good question though. So I'm just gonna use this dot and I painted it on this layer. Now, let's see, I'm gonna hide you so you're not in my video. So now I could just paint it again or I could copy this layer. So watch, I'm gonna go select this layer. There's a couple different ways on how to duplicate your layer. You could duplicate it this way, duplicate layer. Then I can move it. I can move that duplicate. See, here's the problem. This pattern is so wonky. Whatever, I could do this. Or another way to copy a layer is to do this. This layer selected. I have my move tool selected. I hold the Alt key. I just copy it like this. Okay, so the problem with this, you're thinking is, you're probably thinking, Dave, your circle is kind of perfect, but this tribal pattern is not perfect. And so it's not working that well. I agree, it's not working that great. But I don't know. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it doesn't look that bad. Now, I have a lot of different layers that make up this pattern. So before I think I can just define this. Let me try it. Let me try to define it. Usually what the instruction material says is you want to merge it all, but we may not have, oh, and I want to put my color back on. Let me just try it. I believe it will just look at this and define it. You'll be able to tell, watch. I'm going to go edit, define pattern. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it's working. It's working. So I could just hit define. I'll define it. So that's my new version. It wasn't super complicated, but it's different. The handouts will tell you that you should merge these things. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes it's not necessary. Like, as you can tell right there, it wasn't necessary. If it's not necessary, don't merge it. But let me show you how to merge it in case you had to. In case you had to have this as 1 layer. Only do this if you have to. Here's what you do. You select all the layers that you want to merge. So I hold Control or Shift, but I'm going to hold Control. That gives me more flexibility. So I hold Control. I select all the layers I want to merge. Notice how I still have a copy of that original in case I screw it up. If I screw it up, it's like, well, I still got this original. Anyways, I have all of these, and I'm ready to merge. I'm going to knit Emily here. I'm ready to merge. How do I merge? The shortcut is Control E, but let's see if they have it up here. Layer, let's see. Let's see, then merge layers. Merge layers. Merge layers means it's going to merge your selected layers. So I'm going to hit merge layers. And you can see now that it's one layer. Only do that if you have to. I don't really have to do this. I'm going to undo it, Control Z. Why would I not merge my layers? Well, remember, I can change things around. Maybe I want these dots. Maybe I just don't want the dots. Maybe I just want 1 dot. I want the dots though, but I can change it. I can change the size. Anyways, I already defined the pattern. So now Brianne asked, how do you test it again? It's easy. You just make a new layer. So let's see, I'll do it again. You could actually do it in your homework. Should I show you in your homework? I'll show you both ways. Here we go. So first you make a new project, just a new letter size page. So letter size page, create. You just make a separate document. And then what you want to do is you want to fill that with your pattern. Well, how do you do that? To fill it with your pattern, you go to your black and white circle button. It's your layer button at the bottom of your layer panel. So here it is. I call it the adjustment layer button because it's mostly your adjustment layers. Then the top three are fill layers. You want to go pattern. And then you just pick the one you did. I'm going to hit OK. And then it filled it. And then I'm going to look at my other one. I'm going to do another fill layer. So I'm going to go fill layer, or I'm sorry, fill pattern layer. But I'm going to pick the one I did right before it, this one. That way we can look at the difference. So watch, I'm going to zoom in here. So that's the original, and then here's the modified. And you're like, oh, it's pretty cool. It is cool. You can do whatever you want, right? Let me just quickly show you some other things that you can do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. In fact, Brianne, you don't even have to like, if you want, like, you don't even have to like make a new layer. You can do it in your homework. Watch, here's my homework.
That's what I did. I did a swatch and then I just put the line around it.
Well, watch, I'll show you. Watch, you can just do it in here. So it's like, here's my big project, like, right? And I'm just going to go new fill layer. It'll be humongous. It'll fill the whole page, but then I'll mask it like with a square. Watch, I just go option, pattern, pick my, there it is, right? And then what I did was, and so this fills my whole homework, right? And then what I do is I just go to my patterns. I need a copy of one of these masks. And I believe I talked about this in a video. I recorded it so you can review it. But basically, I just copied one of these masks. Oh, but first you got to throw this one away. It comes with its own mask. So I'm going to delete this one. Trash. Delete. Okay. And I'm just going to copy one of these masks. Why? So that it matches the same size. To copy a mask, you hold the Alt key and you just drag a mask right on top of it. And there it is. Now, the problem is it's right on top of that other thing, but I can move it around. But yeah, you guys can totally work that way. While we're here, let's just quickly look at what I did here. Originally, I just kind of painted this little chevron. I just added a little chevron. I just painted that. Here I added dots and I changed the color. You could make it super detailed, but the problem is it doesn't have to be super detailed because remember, it's a small pattern. But just let me give you ideas. I just want you guys to know because you're like, I don't know what to do. There's a lot of different options and sometimes it's hard to know. I'm going to put this back over here, exactly what to do. So I'm going to delete my dots. We delete those. What happens if I just want to paint stuff? I could just I want to make a new layer though. I'm going to hide that. New layer, eyedropper. It's like kind of a creamy white. I'm going to select this creamy white. I'm just going to paint stuff. Let's see, I'm going to make my brush kind of small. I could have like, I could have some outlines here. Now, because I painted this on a separate layer, see how it's not permanent yet? I could try to paint that again, or I can just copy that thing. Now, this pattern itself is not perfect. And you could argue that that gives it some charm. It's kind of like hand done by somebody, right? And that's true. I could just hand do these because these don't match perfectly. Or, watch, I'll do it. I could do this. Or I could just copy these things. Watch, I'm gonna go in here.
Is it in my purse?
Layer. I hold the move tool.
I don't know.
I can just copy these. So I don't care how you do it, whether you draw by hand, especially on this one, it's weird. I could make a copy of this. I could flip it. How do I flip something that's selected? You go to the edit menu. So you go edit, transform. And then you have a lot of different transform options. And here's the flip. Flip horizontally, flip vertically. Horizontally is left to right, so I can do this. Then I can keep copying it. I can go do. The sound effects are optional. I apologize. Okay. Then deselect, Control D. That looks pretty good. It's busy, but that's okay. Finally, don't be afraid to change more than one thing. Like change more than just the color. Like if I just did this, that's kind of too easy. So paint something even if it's a simple dot or just a simple extra line, you can see it wasn't that hard. It wasn't like super rocket science. Here I just painted this line. I'm not really worried about the texture. because it's so tiny. Like if you zoom in here, you'll see, oh, I can see a little bit of a texture here, not so much here. It's so tiny though. It's fine. Anyways, I'm gonna change the color on this one. So let's see, I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna make this one green, even though I don't like the green. Oh yeah, oh, I hate this. Okay, no green. This is a little different. Okay, I'll do this. So again, I'm gonna define the pattern. So I'm gonna go edit, pattern. Oh, look at this. It won't let me define the pattern. This is good. It's good that I made this mistake. It's because my layer is not selected. Now, if I merged all this stuff, yeah, it would have been one layer and it would have worked. Well, I can just select right here. It couldn't make a pattern from an adjustment layer. So I just selected this layer. Let's see if this will work. Let's see, I'm gonna go edit, define pattern. Let's see. Yeah, and I can see that it's gonna work. It's small on your screen, but when you do this, you'll see, oh, I can see that's the right color, has the right details. Good, I'm gonna hit okay. Great. Then I'm just gonna go back to my project. I'm gonna make another fill layer. Let's see where are my layers. The black and white circle. I'm gonna go pattern layer. Here it is, here's my new pattern. I'm gonna hit okay. It's my lovely dog. That's good. And then again, I could copy and paste that mask I showed you earlier, but that's pretty good. That's pretty sweet. So you have a lot of opportunities to modify stuff. Okay, let's look at, I have another sample to show you. I'm gonna let my dog out. Go wait, go wait. Get out of here. Okay. So what about this one? This one's tricky, but let me open it up and let's look at it. Okay, is it opening? There it is. This pattern is very difficult. So I changed the color. This pattern is very difficult because it has this gradient in it. And gradients are hard to tile. Now, they're very difficult. They're very difficult to make a seamless pattern out of this. And so you can see right here that I positioned my guides only kind of in this lighter area. It's kind of this like light yellow, but there's still a little bit of a darker color here. So if I try to make this into a pattern right now, it's not going to work very well. Let me try it. So I only want to sample this area. I'm going to, so I use my rectangular marquee and I'm going to go edit, define pattern. Oh, okay, I got to select my layer, edit, define pattern. Let's look at it. It's not going to work. It'll work a little bit, but it's not going to be that great. Okay, so let's go back to my project. Here we go, pattern, let's try it. Yeah. So you can see, now I didn't try to fix it at all, but you can see that it's really bad on this orange here. This orange really separates from this lighter yellow. And so what do? Man, it's hard. One thing you can do is limit the colors so that this is like only maybe 4 colors. You can go like yellow, blue, green, black. And sometimes that's easier to do in Illustrator. Like you could do an image trace in Illustrator and then define the pattern in there, or just change the colors in Illustrator, bring it back. There are some ways to change colors in Photoshop, but they're a little trickier. I don't know. Also notice that this didn't match up either. I didn't bother to try to fix it. It's close, but not perfect. Okay. Well, what are some things that we can do to try to fix this? So let's go back to my, where was it? Flower print ideas. Okay. So here's some things that I did. The first thing I did was I just made it black and white. You're like, really? Can you do that? Yeah. Oh, well, okay. And this is a, I believe this is a, it's an adjustment layer. So what I did was I went here, I started with this, and it's like, man, that color is interfering. So I'm gonna go adjustment layer, and I'm gonna do, it was black and white. And so here it is. And you can see it's black and white. And you're like, oh, it's pretty good. it's still darker down here, so you might need to lighten it, or I don't know, do something like that. Whatever. Okay. What else did I do? I did, what's this one? Oh, that one's just color. It's still going to be darker down here, but it's like a way to change color. Okay. One of these I just made it, oh, it's right here, threshold. Threshold is, for this pattern, fair game. This is fair game. So what I did was, threshold is a, here, I'm going to hide it. I'll just show you. So here it was originally. Threshold is an adjustment layer. So it's right here, threshold. And what happens is when you get the threshold, it makes it black and white. This is very similar to, if you remember, it's the image trace. It wasn't called black and white, I don't think. Oh, I think it was a black and white image trace in Illustrator. It's the same thing. And you adjusted the threshold. The threshold gives you more black versus more white. So if I go all the way, it's all black. If I go all the way, this was this to the left, it's all white. You want to find the sweet spot, which is like a nice, like you want these to be solid, but then you want the background to be white. So let's see, I don't know, that looks pretty good. So that's an easy thing to do. Then what I could do is I would copy this, right? I would copy, and then I would make a new document, Control N, paste in, and then I would offset it, right? And then you'd have to look at these numbers. And remember, I talked about that earlier in this video. So just go to the beginning of that, because you'll notice that my thing didn't match up. But one thing you will notice is this: once it's black and white, you can add colors. Like you could like maybe select these and paint them like purple. You can make these green. You could select the white and make it a color. So if you start black and white, it gets rid of all that, whatever, the gradation and the pixels, and then just solid shapes that you can do. That's a good way to work with this pattern, because this pattern's tricky. Let's see if I can do this and a color. Was this my color? Let me find my color. Is it this one? I'm going to drag this on top. I think it's still going to be black and white. Let's find out. Oh no. No, it added, so it's like it added a color to the white. The blacks stayed the same. It might be a real dark blue. But these are things that we can do to kind of like work with this pattern, because this pattern is tricky, right? And that's okay. You can do it. Definitely with this pattern, you can modify it. What else did I do? Anything else to it? There's filters, and oh, let me show you about filters. Okay, let's go back. Filters can sometimes work, and then they can sometimes not work. But if you're careful and you get a real good look that you like, and it looks simple enough to modify and change, go for it. But the filter it could give you new problems. So you kind of want to avoid that. So just be careful. But let me show you how to do filters. Now remember, the first step is this: make a copy. So I made a copy.
Okay.
Question? Oh, okay. Make a copy. So I made a copy of my background just in case I totally screw up, right? Then I'm gonna, make a copy. Then we can go to the filter gallery. So I'm gonna go, where's the filter gallery? It's filter menu, filter. Oh, make sure you select your layer. Okay. Filter gallery. And then let's see what we got. Before I go there, your foreground and background color will be used for some of your filters. Not all of them, some of them. So like if you have two colors in mind, if you're like, I want that to be pink and blue, then you're gonna pick pink and blue. In fact, I'll do it. See, I'm gonna go, here's this color, we're gonna go pink. And then the background color, we're gonna just go blue, just to see what it does. So I have pink and blue. Usually if you want black and white, you pick black and white. You can just click here and you'll get black and white. Okay, let's try it. Filter gallery. So here you can see that pink and blue kind of working together. There are a lot of really unique filters that would look really good on like a pattern. The problem is, like look at this one, charcoal pencil. It has all these really cool brush strokes. The problem is that would be very difficult to make seamless. Like you would have to match these just right. That would be unadvisable. Like I wouldn't recommend that. But some of these, so you have to kind of find them. This one would work. Oh, I like it. This one has some texture, but then the background is mostly white. Don't forget, so what is this, cutout? You're gonna discover these because all of them are different and some of them look good, some of them don't look good. One thing I do want you to keep in mind though, is that there's settings for your filter. So this is what the far right. So let's see, number of levels, edge simplicity. I'm gonna make that, so you can adjust these. It was back at 4. Let's see what 3 looks like. That gives me a little more texture. I like that texture. Let me see what 2 looks like. I like it. So you can change these settings and you might get a good look. I really like this. So this I would like to make as a pattern. It kind of looks a little worn, looks neat. So that's cutout, but I just discovered it, right? You'll discover some things too. This is dry brush. Dry brush doesn't look so great because it still has that darker, okay, so that's out. Film grain, difficult. Is it difficult to do? Ooh, I love this one, but it still has, so, but you can manipulate these numbers over here and maybe you can remove some of this extra stuff. I don't know. Anyways, so there's a lot of different ones, poster edges. It might work. My goal is to get rid of this stuff in the yellow. I just want this to be a solid color. So, but those are artistic. There's different categories here. Brush strokes are gonna give you weird designs. Again, this looks great, but it'd be very difficult to make seamless, but you can try, but I don't recommend it. Sketch is the one that will use black and white, or it will use those 2 colors that you had. I had pink and blue, so I got a lot of pink and blue. Stamp is the solid. So stamp is very much like, I forgot what it was. It was that adjustment layer we used. Black, it wasn't black and white, it was the other one. But anyways, this is very similar to that. We got some weird ones. Halftone. Halftone, oh, halftone is so cool. So halftone is kind of working because it's only in the pink and it's not really showing up too much in the blue. So that could work. Anyways, you want to experiment with these. You don't have to use these. Let's see, what else do we got? Some of these are hard to do. Remember, don't punish yourself with a very difficult filter for this homework. Like don't make it extra hard on yourself. Make it hard for yourself for your own patterns or for your own work. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't make it too simple, but don't pick something like extremely difficult for the sake of your homework. Like that's okay. Just do something medium difficulty, right? Anyways, I'm gonna go back to cutout. I really liked cutout. This looks great, so I'm gonna hit okay. So there's my new filtered look, and it looks pretty good. I like the, I like kind of the worn look it gives me on these motifs. And I think it looks neat. The problem is I don't think it got rid of this yellow. Here, how can I check? I'm gonna use my eyedropper. See, I got here up here, it's, I click on this yellow and it gives me the numbers here. It's 2827, what's this? Ooh, it's the same, So this will work, so this is great. Anyways, filters can be a very useful way to modify and to get a new look, because you have to have one filter or one pattern that's different. Now, how to use a filter again? Let me show you, just real quick. First, I make a copy of my background, just in case I screw up. So I just duplicate it, here it is, okay. Then I go filter, filter gallery. You wanna go to the second filter gallery because the first filter gallery it'll give you the last filter you did. So I think it still opens it up though, but this filter gallery, here it is. And then you pick whatever you want. And then you modify it and you hit okay, and that's it. I'm gonna hit cancel though. You can work that way. You can just make copies of your layer and just apply the filter. When you apply the filter that way, it's permanent. And that's okay if you're making copies, but the other teachers would probably want you to do a smart filter. A smart filter is when your layer is a smart object. Let's try it. I always just make copies. Let's try it. So I'm going to make this layer a smart object. Convert smart object. Okay. Now, when I apply a filter to the smart object, I'll be able to throw it away later. That's the benefit. It's a good benefit, actually. Let me try it. I'm going to pick black and white this time, black and white, for my foreground, background. Doesn't matter. I'm just doing it for kicks. Filter gallery. Just going to pick one. I'm going to pick a sketch one. I'm going to pick photocopy. I like this. Let me try it. I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so there it is. Now, because my layer was a smart object, it kind of put the filter underneath it, and I can hide it. I think I can throw it away. I think I can. Let me try to throw it away. I'm gonna drag it to the trash. Yeah. So in theory, if your pattern is a smart object, your filter will not be permanent. The problem is, let's see if I can paint now. You can't paint on a smart object. Let's see what happens if I try to paint on it. Let's say I wanted to add an outline here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it won't let me. It won't let me paint. So when I try to paint, it says, hey, do you want to rasterize your smart object so that you can paint on it? That's basically what this says. And I say, yeah. And so what it did was, this is terrible painting, but you get the idea. It ended up merging all that stuff anyways. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. I leave it up to you guys. I leave it up to you. This looks neat. I might be able to make this into a seamless pattern. It's mostly got white. It's got this gray, but maybe I can like soften up some of this on the edge or whatever. But I don't know. This could work. So that's a nice use of a. So I had this one, and then I had this one. These are neat. These are good uses of filters if you want. So if you want, you can use a filter. Okay. So we talked about using filters. You don't have to use a filter though, if you don't want to. You're like, I'm scared to use a filter. Can I just do these adjustment layers like this one? No, not that one. This one, or this one, threshold. Can I use threshold? Yeah. Can I try a different one? Yeah. Can I use color and threshold? Let's see, it was threshold. What was this? I forget what this was called. This one was called channel mixer. Okay. Yeah, you could do that. So anyways, those will give you some ideas. So for homework, what are you doing? You're gonna do, let's go back here. First, you're gonna download your patterns, right? So we have, these are the ones you can use. You can use this one. You can use, I want you to use one of these four. This one, or this one. These are tricky, but try. And then you can use, this one's hard. I haven't even tried this one, so I don't know how difficult it is. If this one's hard, you've been warned. This one's easier to do. This one I showed you some tricks on. You only need to do 3 of these.
Dave?
Actually, well, yeah, before I answer your question, I take that back. You only need to do 2 of these patterns, and then you got to just modify the 3rd one. So you can take one of these 2 or one of the previous patterns you did and change the colors, add to it, draw on it. So really, you only need to pick 2 of these. Anyways, question? Yeah.
So if I created a pattern and I don't want to keep it, how do I delete that pattern?
Oh, from your like little pattern library?
Yes.
I don't know. Let me check real quick.